Buy it, use it, break it, fix it, trash it, change it, mail, upgrade it, charge it, point it, zoom it, press it, snap it, work it, quick erase it, write it, cut it, paste it, save it, load it, check it, quick rewrite it, plug it, play it, burn it, rip it, drag it, drop it, zip, unzip it, lock it, fill it, call it, find it, view it, code it, jump and lock it, surf it, scroll it, pose it, click it, cross it, crack it, switch, update it, name it, read it, tune it, print it, scan it, send it, fax, rename it, touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave it, stop, format it. Technologic, 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 technologic. Buy it, use it, break it, fix it, trash it, change it.
Hello, everybody.
Upgrade it, chart it, point it, zoom it, press it, snap it, work it, quick erase it, write it, cut it, paste it, save it, load it, check it, quick rewrite it, plug it, play it, burn it, rip it, drag it, drop it, zip unzip it, lock it, fill it, call it, find it, view it, code it, jump and lock it, surf it, scroll it, pose it, click it, cross it, crack it, switch, update it, name it, read it, tune it, print it, scan it, send it, fax, rename it, touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave it, stop, format it, buy it, use it, break it, fix it, trash it, change it, mail, upgrade it, charge it, point it, zoom it, press it, snap it, work it, quick erase it, write it, cut it, paste it, save it, load it, check it, quick rewrite it, plug it, play it, burn it, rip it, drag it, drop it, zip unzip it, touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave it, stop, format it. Touch it, scroll it, pose it, click it, cross it, crack it, switch, update it. Surf it, scroll it, pose it, click it, cross it, crack it, switch, update it, name it, read it, tune it, print it, scan it, send it, fax, rename it, touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave it, stop, format it, buy it, use it, break it, fix it, trash it, change it, mail, upgrade it, charge it, point it, zoom it, press it, snap it, work it, quick erase it, write it, cut it, paste it, save it, load it, check it, quick rewrite it, plug it, play it, burn it, rip it, drag it, drop it, zip unzip it, surf it, scroll it, pose it, click it, cross it, crack it, switch, update it, name it, read it, tune it, print it, scan it, send it, fax, rename it, touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave it, stop, format it, buy it, use it, break it, fix it, trash it, change it, mail, upgrade it, charge it, point it, zoom it, press it, snap it, work it, quick erase it, write it, cut it, paste it, save it, load it, check it, quick rewrite it, plug it, play it, burn it, rip it, drag it, drop it, zip unzip it, surf it, scroll it, pose it, click it, cross it, crack it, switch, update it, name it, read it, tune it, print it, scan it, send it, fax, rename it. Technologic, technologic.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is nice and awake after that. Thanks, Fergus, for the suggestion. What a great way to start the morning. I feel energized already. Hi, I'm Bob. For those that don't know me, I've been running with support from the team and various other people, many of whom are on this call, this community business patchwork network for the last 2 years now. We've initially had lots of weekly conversations to connect community enterprises and community businesses across the country. Started in the beginning of the first lockdown and has continued. Or I don't know how to turn off my notification sounds. Sorry, Karina. If anyone knows how to do that, let me know. Sorry. Yes, we started the network back then and have met initially weekly and then monthly for the past 2 years. So it's great to connect people. And so that's a little bit about the network. Just before I hand over for the day's fantastic event, I'm just going to share one thing on my screen, which is a little bit about the network. So if you don't know already, please do get involved with the network. Go to cbpatchwork.org. Sign in. There's lots of great ways to connect to other community business leaders, chats to share, and we're going to be growing that hopefully this year with a lot more face-to-face and not just Zoom. But that's pretty much me around the network. I'm not going to say much more. Without further ado, I will hand over to our wonderful facilitation team led by Fergus. Fergus, over to you.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, super excited to be here today. So I'm Fergus Arkley. I'm the Digital Innovation Manager for Power to Change. And like Bob said, over the past couple of years, I've been attending these patchwork sessions. And I've hugely benefited from the connections. And over that time, I've been really impressed with the hosts. Like, so I remember thinking back to like Dina from Think FC and Wendy and Hannah from Nudge. So I think, and at the time I would always think with like a bit of esteem, would I ever do this? And look, here I am today, and I've got this fascinating subject of community tech to introduce. So over the past year, Power to Change has gone through quite a few changes with our new strategy. And over that time, we've been spending quite a bit of time trying to understand the relationship between tech and communities, and considering what the benefits are, what are the challenges, what are the barriers. And a big part of that was commissioning some research. So Rachel Coldicutt, who's on her team, completed some research, and we're going to hear more about that in a couple of minutes. But that research really helped to make the case for Power to Change to really consider community tech as a significant area we should look into. So this is today really is an opportunity for us to introduce it and to explore together the concept of community tech. And this is really the start of the journey, because Power to Change has committed an investment over a 4-year program to with a goal of creating an ecosystem for community tech to flourish. So this is just the start of the conversation. So we're really keen to hopefully inspire you all, and after this, and then really to restart that conversation for you to get in touch and for us to then start thinking about community tech. So in terms of the format for the day, we're going to keep it really simple. So no needing to go out into different breakout rooms, no needing to make those really difficult decisions about who you're going to listen to. So we're all going to be in the same room. So we're going to be in this space the whole time. So it's going to run from 10:30 through to 12. So basically, we're going to hear first from Rachel, who's going to set out the context behind and framing behind community tech. And then we're going to hear about 4 community businesses who are early adopters and who are embracing the creation and ownership of tech solutions. So first of all, we've got Sally from the Onion Collective, who's going to talk to us about their digital mapping tool called Understory. I know when I first saw this, it blew my mind. So I'm really, really excited about sharing this with you. So it's going to be good. Then we're going to talk to Emily Berwin from Meanwhile Space, and they're looking at the work they're doing over in Hastings Commons about thinking about a tech space for the community. Then we're going to go to Julie Darby from an organization, a platform called Care Connect, which is it's come from a community business called Nedcare, and this is around how you make viable, how you do community, care introduction services, and how we can spread that across more community businesses. Finally, we're going to go over to Melissa Mean from Norwest Media Centre, and she'll be talking through lots of different projects that they're doing around community tech, from digital manufacturing to building houses to product design, all in South Bristol. So really exciting there. So that's the morning session. And then this is we've got a bonus afternoon session. So this is where we shift into thinking a bit more around no code. So a bit different to community tech, but it's still, I think, really relevant for community businesses and the wider sector to really consider about what are the possibilities from no code. So in that session, we will have Tom Watson from The Good Ship and Simon Borkin talking around their experiences of no code, developing it. I see Simon there, give him a wave. Also, we'll have Charlotte Newman from Carefree, which is a charity that's based on a tech stack of no code. So the whole of this digital platform is based on no code, and it's about making sure that carers get breaks. It's really fascinating. So please do come and join us after lunch. The only other thing before we launch in and I introduce Rachel is to say that please share your questions, put them in the chat. We'll record those. I'll capture them and then we'll use them in the Q&A at the end. Also, I'm just aware, that with digital, we're all at different levels of literacy. So please, if you have any questions, if something doesn't make sense, there's a terminology that's not there, please put it in the chat and we will also try and address that. So without any more to do, I will introduce Rachel. And I look forward to talking to you all at the Q&A.
Hi everyone. Fergus, can I? Yeah, I'm just going to share my slides. So, hang on
There
a
we
minute
go.
while I get started. Hopefully you can all see the slides as opposed to my email or whatever else I might be sharing. So I'm here today to give you a bit of an intro and talk about some research we've been doing over the last couple of years. And it feels like a really kind of interesting time in the wider technology world to be thinking about what technology that is made and owned and created in communities is, what it does, what it's for. It's very topical. And I come at this as someone who's been, I've been working on the internet for years and years and years, since the 90s, when a lot of the things that we have now that look very easy to use, that are very understandable, didn't really exist. And I suppose I come from an open source background, and I'm really interested in how we can go back to getting our hands dirty again and start making things and using technology in ways that meet our needs. And I suppose I came at this after years of working in on the web. I spent a little time, 5 years, running a think tank, thinking about one of the things we were looking at there was how can we hold a better space between the market and the state. Oh, and I have a cat who's just joined me, this Dolly, for everyone who likes cats. Yeah, and so thinking about how we could kind of either regulate the internet better, how we could make alternatives, how we could kind of move away from that very, I suppose, slick, capitalized way of working. And in the last 2 years, I've done a piece of work for the National Lottery Community Fund that was really thinking about what is the role of community organizations in making and thinking about and using tech. And that led to the project we did last year with Power to Change, which is really, that was looking at how community businesses are using technology now. And so we spoke to, I think, maybe about 20 community businesses of all different sorts. And what I'm going to talk about over the next kind of quarter of an hour is really kind of what we found, what we saw, and what the opportunity is of that. So when we talk about community tech, what do we actually mean? We have taken it to mean technology that is owned, made, or adapted by a community. And you know, there's lots of buzzwords and jargon, and it's really important, I think, to understand we're not talking about, you know, starting a Facebook page and growing a community there. We're really talking about how you, as people who run community organizations, can kind of get to grips with technology that does the things you really need. And that actually, it's really interesting to think about the Facebook as like the opposite of everything we're talking about here. It's a platform. Most of us don't use it on the web. We use it in apps. It's extremely controlled. We're only allowed to do the things that Facebook allows us to. We can't kind of muck about with it. It's a global scale network, not local. And the other thing it's really different to, and almost a rebellion away from, is those kind of very one-size-fits-all corporate ways of working. So I've done loads of years doing what's called digital transformation, where you're sort of helping an organization be better at CRM or ticketing or membership or, you know, those kinds of things. And what you tend to have in those kinds of ways of working, this is Microsoft product, is like a very kind of clear way of measuring and understanding the world, in which everything is oriented towards ROI, in the sell, and it's about efficiency. And one of the things we realised, and I don't know I'm aware that the slides are not optimised if you have your Zoom thingy down the side. So sorry about that. But yeah, we were really, in talking to a wide range of different sorts of organisations, we learned that community tech is either something an organisation makes because it wants to solve its own problem. It wants to be better at speaking to its members and understanding them. It wants to publish content more easily. It doesn't want to have to compromise on its ethics or values by using a service that has been brought in. We then noticed that there are like a fairly small number of community tech organizations who had like made things that others were able to use. And so it wasn't just that they were solving their problem, they were solving the problem of like anyone who was running a radio station or an arts centre. But it really came from their perspective, not that top down. And the last kind we found was community technology as infrastructure. And so that might be where, for instance, a specialist in food banks or logistics or housing makes a group of tools that can be used again and again and again. And so what we saw was particularly interesting about this last bit is it wasn't like you're a food bank and you have to customize, say, the CRM system or logistics that would be normally used by a for-profit business. It's actually the software that is created specifically for organizations exactly like yours. And I guess what was really interesting, and I'll touch on this slightly more, is that in that banner of community tech, organizations were doing all kinds of things, right? It wasn't like they were just sending emails or publishing content. They were running pubs and libraries and skate parks and radio stations and art centres. And so that's a really different way of understanding the world to the way that comes out of corporate technology, where you're not defined by the change you're trying to make in the world, but by the kind of business you're doing. And I guess one of the things we started to see here as well is like a lot of the time, the people who were making this kind of technology were doing it because they had loads of experience of Salesforce and Microsoft and Spectrix and all those things. And they wanted something else. They wanted something that was more fun, more engaging, more interesting to use, but that importantly, and this came up a lot, was more aligned with their ethical position. And that it's like, I think I've covered this, but you know, the range of different kinds of organization means that normally when like a technology is brought in to digitize a company, for instance, the idea is that it's all about growth and it's all about making more money, increasing your ROI, getting to scale. But one of the things that we saw a lot was that actually a lot of the community businesses we worked with were almost accidentally echoing the values that the Detroit Digital Justice Coalition have put forward, where actually we can make and use technology that we own, that gives us agency over our environment, and that helps us to share ownership rather than being in a position where, you know, we're paying out a monthly fee for something that doesn't really work for us, that might be aligning to values that we don't share. And I think one of the most important things we learned is that scale. Our ROI is return on investment. So if you've ever bought like off the shelf the CRM, and CRM is customer relationship management, what you will see is that all the tools are optimizing you to go through a workflow where you're building the number of customers, where you're making more money out of every individual customer, that kind of thing. And so, and that, I guess the most important thing that we learn is that, like, if you're in a position where, like, in normal business terms, if you were a corporate landlord, like commercial pub landlord, and you owned a pub, it's likely you would own loads of pubs, and that what would happen is you would have the same kinds of problem in every pub. And what you'd be doing is you'd be getting more efficient, better at solving the problems, doing it again and again and again in different locations, but solving the same problem. However, a community pub might, it's not that likely that the group that have bought out a community pub are going to carry on buying loads more pubs. They're much more likely to use the pub as a food bank, a library, a play group, a meeting place. And so actually there was another thing, which was like lots of the technology that comes off the shelf needs lots of like hoiking about like to meet the needs of an organization who aren't changing in that growth oriented way, which is all about doing the same thing again and again. The way they're growing is kind of people centered as opposed to money centered. And I think that's, the ultimate most interesting thing. And so what this has kind of led us down a path to think about is, how can we think about technology as something that enables community power, not corporate power? How can, and I think this is particularly difficult because, like Fergus was talking about, I think technology can seem to be really intimidating if you're not a technologist. It can seem to be kind of one of those things that people who do IT do. And that actually this is much more about being something that an invested community is able to make together. And while we're on this journey, I spoke to Chris Adams, who works at the Green Web Foundation, and they're really interesting. They are thinking about how technology, which can be very problematic from an environmental perspective, it uses loads of electricity, it leads to e-waste. It's not a kind of neutral and environmental good. And they're doing lots of thinking about how the web that we use can be carbon neutral and actually an environmental good. And one of the things that Chris was saying is that community tech equally creates an opportunity to start building in the values at the beginning that are important, whether that is being more representative, being more diverse, being much more conscious of one's environmental footprint. These all become much more possible when we're not just taking off the shelf the technologies that are given to us by large companies. And like one of the things I think overall that makes this incredibly important, not just because of the needs of every community business and every community organization, there's a whole other role here. We live in a world where a tiny number of people who are based on the west coast of America have the opportunity to set the values that dictate how the internet works for loads of us, right? And that this is a real chance to kind of muscle in, hold a different space, do a thing that is neither owned by the market or the state, to be more experimental and have fun and put those values at heart. And so I suppose the thing that we learned is that this is a real, if we stop thinking about technology as something that kind of happens to us, not as something we need to fit in with, but as something we're able to change, adapt, and share, that we're able to have agency over. There's a load of other advantages where, you know, it can be more environmentally friendly, it can be easier to understand, it's something we're all able to own. And we're really, you know, there's a huge opportunity here. We've got some really exciting plans that I hope will help some of the people you're about to hear from kind of mature and develop the kinds of things that they're working on. And so this is really, I hope, the beginning of thinking about and holding a space and growing a community who can really think differently about the kinds of community they make, own and use. And this is my last slide, and I'm actually just going to go really quickly, so close your eyes, all the way back to this one here to say, right, so community technology is technology that is made by organizations, it's reused, it's infrastructure, and I think it's a really exciting opportunity to make a difference that puts values at the heart of the way we think about the internet. That's it for me. Thank you. And I need to turn off my screen share, which I can never remember how to do. So bear with me a minute. Hang on. There we go.
Thanks, Rachel. That was really great. So everyone, you have an opportunity at the end of the presentations to have a Q&A. So you hold those questions. Either you can share them in the chat now, or you can hold them till then. And yeah, any questions you've got for Rachel. And now I'd like to introduce Sally from Onion Collective over in Watch It, which is on the Somerset coast. Sally, are you able to share your screen? Just trying to give that a go.
Oh, where is it? Hold on, let me just open it up on here and then it. There we are. Can you see that?
Great. Yeah. Brilliant. So I'll leave it to you. See you in 10 minutes.
Thanks, Fergus. Thank you. Yeah, so I've only got 10 minutes, so I'll have to talk efficiently, and Fergus, you might have to hurry me up. But I'll just give a kind of brief intro and explain our journey with Understory. But the main bulk of this, I'll actually kind of explore the platform with you guys so you can actually see what it does. Yeah, so as Fergus said, I'm Sally from Onion Collective. And for the past couple of years, we've been working with a company called Free Ice Cream, and actually Sam from Free Ice Cream is here today as well, on a project called Understory. And so the website is here, understory.community, and also that's the Onion Collective's website, if anyone wants to have a look at it. So Understory is a digital mapping tool that allows communities to reveal and, importantly, to explore the hidden connections that binds them together. So this is how it kind of came about. So several years ago, we won a place on the PBSA pilot. So yeah, that's the place-based social action, for those who don't know, which is a lottery-funded project looking at how communities are kind of best placed to solve their own problems and strengthen their own places. And so we were putting together we'd won a place in the first stage of the process, and we were putting together our report to try and win a place on the second stage. And as part of that, Georgie, one of our co-directors, and I were physically mapping all of the different social action that happens in Watch It on a massive piece of paper. And we Instagrammed that, and Sam got in touch from Free Ice Cream and said, hey, we've developed this platform called 2030 Hive Mind, which we're using to work with the UN, looking at how policymakers can come together and work collaboratively to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And what you're doing here, looking at social action, like perhaps there could be something in this, we could develop this platform to look at social action. So we met up with Sam and had lots of really kind of fascinating, wonderful conversations about this and how on earth this could possibly work to get kind of, if it was kind of putting community hands, and communities were thinking themselves about how they could work more effectively and efficiently together, and how tech could enable that. And so then we put this into our bid, and so and started looking at this process and how you did actually, how you could map social action in a place and all of the connections and things that were binding people together. And so we moved on to a very kind of manual process where we were, calling people up and asking them lots of questions about their connections within the community and who was important to them. And then we created this kind of wonderful digital map, but it was a very laborious process. And then the pandemic happened, and our long-standing hypothesis that community is the first line of defense in a crisis proved to be utterly true, and suddenly everyone became really interested in social capital, and social capital was kind of like hitting the mainstream in terms of the conversations that were happening, and suddenly Understory felt really it felt like a really kind of a tool that had massive potential for really sort of understanding and interrogating what social capital actually is and how it works in places. And so we put together a bid for Innovate UK funding and won that, and then developed the platform with 5 pilot communities over that year. So this is the map, and now I'm going to attempt to change over again onto our website, so that I can demonstrate how the map works. Yeah, so that one. Oh, I'm going to stop the share and start a new one. I think that's the way to do it. Sorry. Screen share. Not that one. Sorry about this. Be with you in a second.
Sally, do you want me to put the link in the chat to the Watch It map?
No, it's fine. It's just screen sharing it. Don't worry. Thanks, Sam.
Okay. Just somebody asked in chat, but maybe it's better
that
you
yes,
direct people.
please. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
But you are going to give a tour, so also the screen share is quite important to see how it works.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So here we are. Got it. Can everyone see that? Presumably you can. Okay. So this is the map. So I'll go through the tour of the map, which then explains how, what we're doing and how we're collecting this data. So with the Innovate UK funding, what we did is we transitioned the platform and made it into the way we changed entirely the way we collected the data, and we made it an event-based data collection method. So basically we used Zoom. So we went into 5 different places and organized a Zoom. So we did it in Watch It first of all, so kind of test it, and then worked in 4 other communities. And in each of the communities we worked with, we had to work with a really strong community anchor organization. And so in each of these places, we asked the anchor organization, or we did ourselves, collected lots of important community players together, a representative from each of the really important organizations at play in the town. So we had kind of up to 50 organizations represented in each of these Zooms. So they came together, and the Zoom lasted about 1.5 to 2 hours. And we asked a series of questions And the questions then translated to a map, which was created in front of their eyes. So we went from having a really kind of laborious data collection method, which took, we'd taking sort of several weeks to collect the data to make a map, to doing it all in about an hour and a half. So that was incredible. And this is what we have got to now. So if I take you on the tour. So first of all, we had all the people that took part in the mapping. So these are all of the people that took part. So this is the people that have been named or took part in the mapping in the community. So they're all represented by lilac nodes. So all of those people represented organisations, and the organisations that were represented are shown here as green nodes. So we asked a series of questions, and the questions went along the lines of, who are the people who are really important for your organisation? And so people who came to the mapping listed all of the people that were important to their organisation. And so then you can see that they're connected to the organisation here in these kind of like little flowers. So the green is the organisation and the purple is the people. So that is what we call in network theory, which most, I'm sure a lot of the people here will know, is your bonding social capital. So these are the kind of tight groups of organisations at play within your community. And so then we asked who within your in your community is important for enabling your organisation to kind of do its work. And that might not be people within your organisation, it might be people on the outside of your organisation. So who are you, if you're in a crisis and you need to pick up the phone, you need some help from someone, who do you call? And so we asked people to list up to 10 people that kind of served that function within their community. And here, this is shown by the blue connections, which are now, that's showing our bridging social capital. And this is what we think is really super interesting, because the bridging social capital is the kind of like, it's almost like the scaffolding that holds community together, because you've got all these lovely little groups working separately in silos in your community. And they might be doing all sorts of wonderful work, but they might not be doing it very efficiently because they're all doing it separately. And actually these bridges, these people that connect all of the different organizations, enable them to work efficiently. And that was particularly apparent in the pandemic, right? When, the places that were able to respond quickly to the pandemic and set up these amazing mutual aid groups quickly and efficiently were places with a lot of bridging social capital, places with people that connected them together very well, because it meant that you had these kind of super fast highways of trust. And so everything happened quickly. So then we also asked people what, I'm getting towards the end of my time, I'll have to be really quick now. So we also asked people what outcomes that they were working towards. And we had a list of very high level outcomes. And we asked people to tick all of the outcomes that they're working towards at that time. And so these outcomes are shown here in yellow. And so that's really interesting, because these outcomes, we're doing it as we're mapping, and as we map over time, we can see the different outcomes that communities are working towards and what matters to people and places at any given time. And also what it shows is they provide us here, this shows that if you actually connect people by the outcomes, like the potential routes to collaboration. So there may be two completely different organizations. For example, the example I was given is a football club and an arts organization who are seemingly completely different, but they're working towards the same outcomes. So then this becomes a very kind of visual representation of that, the potential routes to collaboration. And then importantly as well, we ask people who outside of your community is important to enabling this work to happen. And that's your linking social capital. That's your connections to sources of power. And so now, as we develop this platform, what will be interesting, so we've just won some more funding from the lottery, from the Bringing People Together pot, to develop this tool over the next couple of years. And we're going to be mapping 30 communities now and looking at 30 different communities, and that will provide us with some really interesting meta data on different communities and how the linking social capital is going into all of the different communities and how it's flowing through communities. So, you know, how government and funders, you know, the ebb and flow of government and funder support, where it's coming in, how it's trickling through, the places that are working by themselves, the places that are working efficiently as, you know, tightly connected places, and those places that are don't have that kind of same strong social infrastructure. I won't go back to my presentation because I've run out of time, but I'll just make a couple of quick more points. So it's really interesting, we think, for communities, because it's what this platform does is it puts knowledge in community hands. You've got a map of your own community, so it's a kind of holding a mirror up to yourself so that you can understand your place better. And we found that in Watch It, it was really interesting for understanding our place better. We were able to explore who the hyper connectors were in our place, how many, you know, if like a lot of power was residing in one area and not in another, who was left out of the map, where our vulnerabilities were. It just enabled us to understand ourselves better, and also to really value the social capital in our place. And actually, you know, if we start thinking about these different metrics, how, you know, a place like ours, which on the kind of traditional metrics, where you're looking at economics and so forth, we've generally fared badly. If we look at our social capital, we're off the charts. And that's just a really interesting alternative view that really kind of stood us in good stead for the shocks of the pandemic. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at over the next couple of years with this funding, is how we really, because we were really kind of understanding Understory and its power for exploring social capital, and through that our resilience as places. And so we're going to be developing the ability to kind of place shocks through the program. So, you know, as climate, we've had just experienced a couple of major shocks, and we've got quite a lot of shocks to come. So it's really understanding how those shocks affect places and where our vulnerabilities lie. And it's just about communities having the tools to explore that for themselves. Also, it really, you know, it means that on a meta level as well as on a community level, we can explore what the values communities are working towards change over time. What's important to places now? How does that compare to a year from now? And it supports an evolution rather than a monitoring approach to evaluation as well, which we think is really interesting, because a monitoring approach to evaluation can sometimes be a bit extractive. And this is much more about community having ownership and developing over time with this platform. And I probably need to be quiet now, didn't I? Because otherwise I'm going kind of way over time. But just to say, I'll just close to say, we are over the next 2 years, mapping 30 new communities in England, Scotland and Wales. We're particularly interested in social infrastructure as well, and how social infrastructure provides places for people to come together and connect, and how that relates to the strength of a community. So especially in terms of industry. So we're particularly interested in kind of post-industrial places and the connections that are alive in those places. So if you think you are one of those places and would be interested in joining us and being mapped over the next couple of years, please do get in touch. And my email is sally@onioncollective.co.uk, and I'll put that address in the chat. But,
thank you. Thanks, Sally. It's in the chat already, yeah. Sam's done a great job of doing your promotion for you, yeah. So
well, no, I wrote it down wrong actually, so it's definitely .co.uk, not .com. Thanks.
We will follow up with everyone's contact data, especially that one, because it's a great opportunity. I mean, when you showed me that, Sally, it blew my mind. When it is such a fantastic tool. So yeah, and I'm just want to see it. Yeah, I want to see. It'd be amazing to see how you compare place to place, and yeah, get more people using it. So now we're going to shift over and speak to Emily from Meanwhile Space over in Hastings. Now this is a bit different because, you know, what we're looking at here is, rather than a technological platform or a piece of tech, which, you know, we're thinking about community tech from a place's perspective, right? How can community tech work within a space? So Emily, are you okay? And are you okay to share your screen?
I am indeed, yeah. You might need, it's real fly through again, so please knock me down, Fergus, if I'm going too long. Hello everybody. Can you all see my screen?
We can,
right,
yeah.
The right part of the screen. Good. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys about the Creative Digital Hub that we are delivering at the Observer building in Hastings. So it's this building on the right-hand side. We also own the left-hand building there, Rock House, and we've been working in this neighbourhood for many, many years, but we've been, we started in the left-hand building, which is Rock House, as a meanwhile use in the basement before we bought it, and delivered a what we call a phased organic redevelopment. And so we are an ecosystem of many great organisations, one of which is Meanwhile Space, Jericho Road and Heart of Hastings. They form White Rock Neighbourhood Ventures, who are the community-led developer of these buildings. We take very much a sort of digital peer-to-peer sharing open source philosophy to the way that we work. So not duplicating resources or tools, but that each has our own specialism that we bring to the table in the area. And together we are delivering a number of different projects and spaces. Some are acquisitions, some are leases, but all with the mindset of how do we capture for community benefit and ultimately long-term community ownership of the buildings in this fantastic area that's undergoing a lot of change. So this is a sort of nice illustration that gives you an idea of sort of context of where it's located. There's a heritage action zone in that local area, but it is a fast regenerating area adjacent to the new town. And how do we retain the good bits of that for local people to benefit from? So coming back to the Observer, which is the largest of the buildings in the Commons, we call it the Hastings Commons, and has secured, the Creative Digital Hub has secured for the ground floor of that Observer building £717,000 as part of the Hastings Town Steel Fund. And we're at the stage where we're currently working up the business case in partnership with the council to go forward for approval and project delivery for the summer if it is approved. So this phased organic development approach is underway throughout the rest of the Observer building to deliver phase one of that, which is workspace, some food and beverage, and some other leisure uses, and other enabling works to make the building watertight, put windows in for the first time since 1984, and start to get the building in proper active use. And then we will move on to the later phases, including the Creative Digital Hub. So one of our approaches is also to use meanwhile uses to test activities, to refine the business model, to build the networks around the different types of activity that we want to bring, and see whether it can work. So this is an architect's visualization of what it looks like. It's a form of print works, so a very large footprint, quite actually difficult to use. It's built into the cliff. So it's really challenging but interesting, and a really wonderful, exciting building to be working with. So why digital? We have settled on this idea that digital is actually really important to the town and can provide a lot of very interesting and aspirational benefits to local people. Including employment and entrepreneurial opportunities, but that it also bridges between that and everyday life management. Sorry, I just need to move everybody's faces so I can read this. And that also it can provide enriching entertainment experiences. Being a tourist town, attracting visitors is also very important to us. The sector can create the quality employment opportunities that are not currently available in Hastings. Currently, lots of younger people leave the town to go to Brighton or to London to find these types of employment opportunities. So tourism as well, a high quality leisure experience for local people and visitors alike is also something we want to try and achieve. And we feel like it can support the community to upskill and have the same access and opportunities and financial benefits that digital access can unlock. So Fergus was talking a little bit about this, but we've chosen to make this a physical thing. So we have these assets, we have these wonderful buildings, and we have the opportunity to create space that can provide all these digital experiences and opportunities from it, and that it will also bring people together to work and socialise and catalyse the regeneration of the area, which is really what the Hastings Commons is all about. Okay, so the challenges that we faced are that everybody's view of what a digital hub is varies massively. We're very lucky, we've got a huge number of people who are very interested and committed and engaged with the Commons. And once we started talking to people, we quickly realised that people thought that this could be a workspace for digital businesses, it could be a VR lounge, a makerspace, a hackspace. Honestly, there were so many different views and versions of what a digital hub could be. So we decided that the way to approach this was to engage as many people as possible to try and understand what the needs are of the town, what the opportunities of the building can provide for, and also what people want to see happen there. But to try and have something that's really aspirational and inspirational. This is really a large amount of money. It's a one-off opportunity to create a fantastic asset for the town, and how we go about that is really important. And then once we've gone through those kind of processes of looking at who's doing what elsewhere, what we can learn from, and how we can apply that to Hastings, then we're looking at what's viable and how we can make it sustainable in the longer term basis. So we've been working on this actively and are currently at the sort of business case stage and thinking about how we apply that. But our vision that we've settled on for the digital hub is to provide inspiration for tech and digital businesses, to attract them to the town so they don't leave, through providing equipment, infrastructure, creating a valuable asset and facility for the town. We want to work from the ground up with young people with enthusiasm and talent to co-deliver and grow the offer into an inspirational environment. And we want to work with the industry in the form of sponsorship, mentoring, training, to provide learning and skills development, as well as routes into employment. So we started with a lot of talking to people. We ran a series of workshops, interviewed one-to-one key stakeholders. We ran another series of visioning workshops. We've been working alongside the Observer Project Board as well to sort of stress test some of the thinking as we've been going through. And then these outcomes have formed a strategic case for the Creative Digital Hub. So it's just a bit about the stakeholders that we've spoken to and the very different views that they've had, from wanting it to be about indie gaming, AR and VR, to wanting it to be for the local community that don't have access to internet, to wanting it to be for younger people to retain them in the town and provide opportunities. So from these conversations and also understanding a lot about the needs of the town and the opportunities of the building, we've identified 3 potential themes that we want to focus on. And these are leisure. So we want to create a cutting edge, evolving, high profile space that enables people in Hastings to experience new technologies, but also attracts tourists and other creative industries to Hastings. We want to focus on the talent, provide an inspirational, aspirational space. Doesn't have to be for young people, but it's a particular demographic in need in the town, opening up training and employment beyond formal learning institutions, and retaining that talent in the town. And also community, to develop a space that's accessible for all and can bridge the gap between digitally included and excluded. So we've broken each of these themes down and really tried to understand what that might look like on a day-to-day basis. So for leisure, it's an immersive AR experience, an exhibition that draws people in, an immersive experience that also provides an outlet for local creatives to get involved with delivering those exhibitions that may change on a fairly regular basis. And we've also considered what the need of that and the demand for it is in the town, who might come to it, and how viable is that, what kind of price points might they play. We ran a really excellent project called Wonder Golf, which was kind of creative festival version of golf in that site in a couple of years ago, that got thwarted by COVID, unfortunately, but it was incredibly successful. It brought together all creative people in the town to deliver it, and had actors providing the sort of welcome experience, and lots of different people delivering the project. So building on that in a digital way, using that network from that Meanwhile activity, and understanding from the feedback that people gave as well was really important. For talent, we're thinking about almost a kind of production space and maker space where you can have hackathons, people can come and hang out and just play games, but also there's kind of collaborative opportunities with business, how we retain young people, create opportunities for them for employment, how they can maybe produce things that might go and then be used in the more leisure part of the project as well. And how we learn from other projects that are happening locally as well. And then for community, it's actually how do we, is it more of a programmatic opportunity for engaging schools and intergenerational activities, using the sort of downtimes of the leisure offer to use the equipment, hireable event space, those kind of activities, but also just providing access to internet for people that may not have it. And it may be that the Observer is not the best place for that, maybe somewhere else in the Commons that we want to make that into a more suitable and bespoke space. Then we looked at the social impact of each of these different uses, and really kind of summarised that actually the leisure use is not so good on the social impact, but strong on boosting tourism, maybe the better income generator. It's the talent and the community that really bring the different social input, and how we can maybe kind of combine those was something that we started thinking about next. And the risks of each of those themes, the concerns and the worries over digital projects is the costs. The capex costs are very high, but not to mention the challenges we also face, which I think people have discussed before, is the intimidating subject matter and language that can be used, particularly by people who know what they're talking about and are very enthused by that subject. But also that the breadth of the community feedback and how we understand the different requirements of each of the uses that we're bringing forward, how to meet those multiple needs in one space, and the challenges and risks around each of those uses, not least in combining them together, it creates different kinds of risks as well. But our preferred model that we're exploring is the leisure-led model, with dedicated space for talent and community programmed into the activities. So we will have a strategic lead who is able to connect across communities and all across the different groups and sectors of people that may be coming in there, find those opportunities, seek them out, create collaborations with businesses, and program that space to a high intensity to make sure that there's as much community gain as possible. So we feel,
Emily, sorry,
yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt too much, but I just got wondering, next steps, and we can then
next steps.
what
That's fine. So I'll wrap up very quickly. So we're flying through these bits here, which are space design and CapEx, to define the outputs and the delivery and management plan. And then we'll be putting that forward to the business case in April. And then we will be testing. We've got a digital playground that's going to be tested from January to July this year, and a digital map gaming workshops, both of which will feed into the leisure and the talent strands and inform those into better products. Okay, that's me. Apologies for overrunning.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, well, apologies for me for interrupting, but no, that's great. I'm looking forward to. I might come down to the playground. That sounds good. I think I've got lots of questions to ask in the Q&A, so I'll line them up for then. So I'd like to introduce Julia Darby from Care Connect. And Julia, are you okay with screen sharing? Do you want to give it a go?
Yes, thank you, Fergus.
Brilliant. Yeah, we can see you.
We have the technology. Great. So yeah, thank you for the invitation to introduce Care Connect today. It's called Community Care Connect for short. For the sake of full disclosure, I should start by saying that I'm one of the least likely people to be leading a community tech project, because I'm one of the least techie people I know. And I think that's probably why I might have been invited, for anyone who might be tech hesitant on this call. So in describing our approach, I'm hoping in part to show how a non-techie person can lead on such a project by bringing in expertise and harnessing collaborative approaches such as co-design. So what are we doing and why? A brief bit of background. Community Care Connect grew out of my local community's experience of living in, or rather surviving in, a care desert. So this is northeast Dartmoor, beautiful and rugged, but in 2015 it was in market failure for social care, meaning there were no regulated providers that the local authority could commission to provide care at home in the area. Leading to some appalling situations, as you might expect. Because local authorities can only purchase regulated care, we knew we needed to set up a regulated home care agency for Northeast Dartmoor, which became Nedcare, now a successful community business. But in the beginning, we knew that that was going to take a lot of time and a lot of money, and there was an immediate urgent need for care at home. So I looked around on the internet and I found such a thing as introduction agencies, which introduce people needing care to self-employed and directly employed care and support workers. And here's a few examples: Curem Care at the top there, and My Home Touch, which is the bottom panel. And these large commercial operators are typically owned by hedge funds and large corporations, where 12 to 20% of every care hour worked goes back to these platform owners. So I researched the regulations and guidelines behind introduction services, and within 6 weeks I launched a very much analog carer introduction service, which really took off. In fact, it did so well that a range of organisations got in touch to ask, can you do that over here? Or can you tell us how you did it so we can copy your approach? So the question then was, how do we support a range of organisations to replicate this approach in their own local areas? And so very briefly, this is the scale of the problem we're trying to solve: widespread market failure and insufficiency in adult social care, where 1 in 7 older people can't access the support they need. But these figures are pre-pandemic, and the situation continues to decline. So anyway, initially we wrote a toolkit, a step-by-step guide for non-profits in setting up and running your own carer introduction service. But whilst I was doing that, I looked back at the original inspiration and realised that we could build something similar in terms of an online platform, which we can then license out to those organisations setting up their own services. So in my mind, that was about democratising the tech, making it affordable and accessible to organisations to use and develop their own services without them needing to finance the development of their own platforms to do it. It's also about local wealth creation, supporting purpose-driven organisations to develop their own viable and profitable introduction services, where that profit is then reinvested into the local community and not sucked out into a hedge fund's portfolio. And to give them essentially a business in a box, the toolkit, but also the functionality that they need to run an effective service, the back-end database and matching functions, which is our rapid prototype, as well as the rostering, billing and payment functions to bring the platform up to full functionality, which is now happening through the integration of third-party software. Ideally, we wanted to do this on a white label basis, where each connector organisation's part of the platform looks like an extension of their own site. And we also wanted to make it better than the existing commercial platforms, so include the functionality that they do to support end users, but also to bring in a range of added value resources and functions, such as facilitating peer support across all user types, so care seekers, care workers, connecting organisations and local authorities themselves. So essentially developing communities of practice across user types and within and between geographical communities and communities of association. So for example, we have one work stream in development where we're working with a group of organisations led by Black, Asian and other minoritised community members to develop approaches with them that are specifically addressing the lack of culturally appropriate care. Because although many areas and communities are underserved in social care, minoritised communities are significantly more so. So the Care Connect platform is about supporting grassroots organisations to build care and support relationships at a local level, and the tech is the enabler of that. I would say that Care Connect is not tech-led. The tech is a central and important element which supports the magic ingredients, and they are the development and sustenance of relationships and care support networks within communities. And it facilitates creation of financially viable infrastructure at a community level, which can support and sustain those relationships. So I want to get back to the processes that we went through to get here. In terms of developing the platform, we had three options. Pay a firm to build it for us from scratch, bring someone in-house to do it, or license an existing platform and retrofit it to meet our needs. The fastest and the cheapest route was to retrofit an existing platform, which we can then sub-license to our customers. With that option, we'd get a multidisciplinary team and hopefully a productive and trusting partnership into the long term. But how do we find that partner? I should just say IP ownership in this is a bit of a red herring with our platform, because the platform's essentially, Care Connect is an iteration of already existing tech. So the IP is questionable there. It's fair to say that our thoughts on the best way to go fluctuated as we went along, initially in line with whatever funding opportunity we were going for. But latterly, once we began talking with our developers and discussing our ideas with them, the strengths of option 3 just became more and more apparent. So introducing Made Open. Robert Wolf, the co-founder and owner of Made Open, is on this call. So please do chat with him if you want to know more about their platform. So Made Open helps organisations and partnerships to build bespoke community platforms. It already has a range of functions that you can get plugged in, if you like, according to licensee needs, such as directories, the ability to build teams and create campaigns. It also includes a range of, a real benefit for us is that Made Open platform is used by a lot of organisations, all achieving in different ways a wide range of social impact. And what's really good for us is that they are working in Wales, as we're soon to do. So translation and implementation across the border will be easy. And they're also increasingly working around the world, which we may want to do one day as well. And as a supplier to organisations like the NHS, Made Open have already gone through lots of the security testing and paperwork that local authorities like to see. So that's been really helpful. And by the way, that Launceston together along the bottom line, that's Launceston in Tasmania, not Launceston in Cornwall. So for me, this partnership really means that I've got a tech team. They're really calm and really patient with me. And I rely on them in getting me comfortable with the tech. I've got that ongoing support there. We've got a shared desire to succeed, mutual self-interest, if you like, but also a shared social vision, which is great. We've got shared values and aligned mission. And most importantly now, Care Connect has the potential soon to go rapidly to scale to address the depth and the spread of insufficiency in the social care market in the UK. So what does community tech mean for us? It's been created for reuse by others, and it's acting as infrastructure to support a broader community of practice. And actually Care Connect itself is becoming an infrastructure organisation for community-owned services, which is really refreshing. In the longer term, we're considering becoming a cooperative whereby our customers are our members. But we're already taking a collaborative and co-productive approach whereby if one customer, for example, is developing a resource to support their service, they agree to share that with all of our other customers to support efficiency and development of best practice in running introduction services. So we're capturing that learning within and between our customers, all of which will be on the platform. Yeah, so just to finish off, where do we see it all going? What are our aspirations for it? Well, you know, what's his saying? I can't remember it now. It's not the sky's the limit. Infinity and beyond, that's it. But seriously, ultimately, we want to have significant positive impact on the sorry state of care in the UK. And along the way, we want to secure change in the regulations around introductory agencies, from regs that are designed to protect the regulator, we feel, to ones that are designed to support improved quality and safety in the unregulated market, and better choice and control for the people who draw on social care in their daily lives. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Julia. That's really, yeah, thanks for keeping time, but that's it's fascinating about the progress you've made, and also, yeah, your big aspirations, and keeping your options open. Sure, please, if anyone's got any questions for Julia and about Community Care Connect, please chuck them in the chat and we'll cover them in the last 10 minutes. And yeah, I'd like to hand over to Melissa. Melissa, are you okay to share your screen? Give it a go anyway. Here we go. Well done. Thanks.
Wow. Well, very nice to be here. Can everyone see that?
We can, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, so really wonderful to be on this platform. What a fantastic kind of panel of speakers, and very pleased to see this strong show from the Southwest as well, so go Southwest. My name's Melissa Mean. I'm from Norwest Media Centre, and we're a digital arts centre where we mix people, tech, art, and try out better ways of living together. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about our people and place-led approach to tech innovation. So we are based in Norwest, which is a 100-year-old council estate in South Bristol. 5,000 homes, pretty much all of them like this, 15,000 people, and we're in the kind of top 5 of multiple deprivation. Now, outsiders often look at Norwest and kind of see it as a bit of a problem to be fixed, maybe even demolished and started again. And it probably won't surprise you that we take a different view, and that Norwest is rich in know-how and rich in resources. We kind of use a bit of an 80-20 rule, that actually we've already got 80% of what we need. And the challenge is not to demolish and start again, it's how to surface and engage that 80% of know-how and resources. And then how do you remix them with the right kind of 20% of something new? And we think that new tech has got a really important role to play in this remixing. However, tech as we know it is a bit of a problem. First, because tech innovation is conceived as tech push, and treats the world as a bit of a blank slate, where the job is to make widgets and build from the internet up. And the second problem with kind of tech as we know it is that tech change often risks consolidating power and profit in the hands of the already powerful and wealthy. The kind of dominant pattern for rollout of new tech is a winner-takes-all approach, where 1 or 2 players quickly dominate the market, create barriers to entry for others, and concentrate benefits in the hands of the already powerful and wealthy. So our kind of question and starting point, well, what if you started tech in a completely different place? US academic Shannon Matten's got a lovely term for this, which I really, really love, which is the root stock. What if you started tech from the root stock of people and places? And by this, she means the kind of the layers of imagination, wisdom, know-how that have accumulated over the generations by exactly those people and places, usually on the receiving end of external tech fixes. So what does this kind of rootstock look like? So meet Jim. I met Jim when I was doing an outdoor circus performance, and we needed some power for our smoke machine. And I tapped on his door, and he very kindly said that I could plug my my smoke machine into his shed. And he opened up this kind of lean-to against his house, and inside he's got an industrial-sized kiln, and he's making bonsai pots, and then he's exporting them from Knoll West to Japan, which is just kind of genius and brilliant. And then Jim, he's just the rootstock, the very tip of the rootstock iceberg. Mixing my metaphors terribly here, but anyway, a couple of years ago we worked with the US artist Suzanne Lacey to create what's something that we called the University of Local Knowledge. And that's got over 800 videos of community know-how, with people sharing everything from how to catch and skin a rabbit to how to set up your own cloud computing system. So if a people and place-led approach means putting tech into the hands of communities and people like Jim, so they can use this tech on their terms rather than the terms of a commercial firm. So the difference between using this people and place-led approach to tech to the usual business as usual tech approach is quite striking. So this is a kind of an array of air quality sensors developed by the kind of tech push business as normal model. And then this is our version, which is the people and place. So we've got air quality sensors that can detect damp in people's homes, designed as frogs, or little ladybirds that you can attach to your bike so you can judge the air quality as you're scooting around town. And the kind of contrast and the problem isn't that kind of this tech is boring and this is kind of exciting. The problem is the kind of the whole relationship. So it's about power and agency, really. So is tech approachable? Can you open it up? Can you tweak it, fix it yourself? Who owns the data inside? What can you do with it? And I think we're really excited about how you can really put community tech in the hands of communities and use it on their terms. So one area we're particularly excited about at the moment is modern methods of construction. So construction is the kind of least digitized sector in the world, just above hunting. But this is kind of changing. So there's new modern methods of construction that are kind of sweeping in. So these are kind of digitized design and construction tools. And there's a kind of assumption of about what this tech revolution is going to look like, which is this picture on my right, might be your left, of like mega factories, centralized, massive kind of things. And I think this is the assumption of a lot of people in kind of government and big firms as well, that this is how it's going to roll out. But what if we could have a different kind of future that had community tech at the heart instead? So rather than just one or two big players dominating the market and kind of scooping up all the benefit and the power for themselves, what if instead you could have these kind of new tools distributed, diverse, in the hands of communities? So this is what we're trying to do here in Knoll West. So we've got a kind of small community fabrication makerspace, and we're trying to put these new modern methods of construction really into community hands. So over the last couple of years, we set up a bit of test space and see how we can do this. And we've just to show some of the things that we've been up to. So we've been training community members, kind of age 11 to 76, I think is the age range. So what does it mean when you put, a machine like, this kind of a computerized cutting machine into the hands of communities? How do we kind of, train? So we've managed to so far, and we've been developing as well the digital platform below it as well. So can we build this as a kind of system agnostic factory that can use a mix of different MMC products, kind of like, and to see what we can build for ourselves. So far, clicky. There we go. Yeah. So far we've used 4 different commercial systems and seeing how we can open them up, play for them ourselves, and adapt them for our own uses. We've created a community pavilion, Block West, which is a great bit of kind of using tech to create social infrastructure that we've used as a performance space for artists, and a nice use of community tech here. This is us throwing some shapes at a silent disco, which is very nice. And then what we're up to at the moment is actually building homes, community-led homes for local people as well. So this is, we're live on site here, this home here. So these cassettes, like giant Lego that fit together. So made those in our factory. And then this home is for Tony and her daughter, Amancia. And then Tony's actually been in our factory training up and making the cassettes herself. So this is kind of, you know, we've now got a kind of a way to produce homes that is working at a BOPAS standard, which is the gold standard for modern methods of construction. And we've got a kind of chance of really kind of like how you can integrate these kind of new technologies. And this is our kind of vision of how it kind of fits in. So you're kind of, you know, making sure the community tech is part of a thriving neighbourhood, helping to create good homes, local jobs, social infrastructure, community wealth. And this is kind of like, you know, we're beginning to do this. We've got glimpses of this future, but it's a slightly speculative future still, because, you know, we need some bigger changes and bigger investment in community tech if we're really going to make the leap forwards that we need to do. So we've got a kind of wish list of for community tech, and I'm not going to go through all of these now because we can pick some of these things up in the questions. But I think one of the things is, you know, the big challenge is time for community tech to take a genuine seat at the table. And so rather than treating community tech as kind of like last resort, a little nice to have, you know, do stuff around the edges, it's actually got to be central to how we create more thriving, equal places. And I think it's interesting if you look at the tech spend and the investment in R&D that comes from central government. So the UK government's got a target of £22 billion a year to go into you know, innovation and R&D, which is a huge amount. And I think it almost exclusively at the moment goes to business and academic sector, and the community sector is not there at all. So I think the kind of challenge is like, how do we get a seat at the table? Because if we even got a crumb of that kind of budget, let alone a slice of that, that could be really transformative for the community tech sector, and we could really, really drive a genuine way to kind of build back better. Yeah. Oh, and oh yeah, and we've got a lovely. We'd love to make a really big factory, and then we could really kind of take it to scale. Cool.
Great, Melissa, that was brilliant. Thank you for that. Really lovely slides and a great presentation. So we have now into the Q&A phase. So yeah, so before I start, I've got a couple of pre-prepped questions, but has anyone got a question that you'd like? We haven't got much time, we've got 7 minutes, so I wouldn't want to start taking up lots of time with my question. So what questions from the floor? Has anyone got a question they'd like to ask first? Anyone? Okay. Well, okay, there we go. Sarah, so I can see your hand up. Sarah, please go. Yeah, thank you.
Unmute myself. Yeah, a tentative question, because I know all of this is so speculative. That's the word you use, Melissa, but do you know of a way in which you can use a form of kind of backwards planning for the change that you bring about with community technology? Do you use any tools for that so that you can really work back from you know, quite far-reaching goals?
Yeah, I mean, we've got I think you dropped a question in the chat about a theory of change. Yeah, I mean, we've got a theory of change and a grand vision for how we would love to see the world. Yeah. And I think it's like, how can you create now some glimpses of that future that are kind of tangible, that people can actually feel in their hands and see and get, you know, hands-on with it. Because I think you can have a lot of really great imagined futures, but if you're not making it happen now, it's always going to seem really theoretical. And I think that's particularly with tech, because it's all sci-fi, it's the future, but it's kind of like, how do you actually get this stuff here and now, really addressing what people's needs are now? And I think that's actually quite an exciting space, because I think you can do kind of, you know, we try and take a bit of a test and learn experiment approach, you know, do some small experiments, but kind of bank them and build them. So you're kind of, you feel like you're making progress, that you're not just kind of chasing a dream that's 20 years away, but you're making progress in the here and now, which I think is particularly important, because I think communities are often promised a lot of things that are going to happen in 20 years time and nothing much happening in the actual now.
And also that breaks down fear. I know we don't have time for this. I'd love to have a wider discussion about that kind of backwards planning approach.
Thanks, Sarah. Esme, have you got a question?
Hello. So I'm really interested in both Sally and Julia, because like for both of yours, there's something about you've used the technology to understand the connections that are there in the community in some way, that it's amplified and supported that. And I just wondered if you've got a sense of in what ways, or with which types of people, or kind of where has that kind of generated the most energy? Where's the response been more positive from seeing, from understanding what the community looks like, or what it is by doing the work that you've done, and what, you know, because I think that might give us some ideas about parallels with our own communities, or things that we might learn from that kind of people side.
So from our point of view, I'm amazed actually at the number of different ways into a new service being created, which can be via an anchor organisation sort of recognising the model and saying that would really work here, that would work really well with our social prescribing or our befriending service, or one of our early adopters is a nurse, a palliative care nurse, who's really wanting to improve the situation in Sidmouth for end-of-life patients. Then we've got local authorities who are saying we need to address the care gaps in our communities. And so what I'm really finding is actually there's a myriad of ways in, each of which has their, you know, their benefits. So sorry, that's a bit vague, but.
Yeah, so then for us, yeah, there's been, I guess, I don't know, lots of people have been excited in lots of different ways. So I mean, you know, lots of communities of interest have got in touch and said they're really excited about us mapping them as well, but I think that's another story. In terms of the actual communities we're mapping, there's the kind of excitement within the community, and then there's the external kind of interest in the metadata or meta narrative that we're kind of unpicking from all the work. But I think really for us it's exciting, like you know, because we've experienced it as well, we've done it in Watch It, and so we've really understood what it means. You know, we're a community agriculture organisation, we've sat there, we've looked and explored the map, and we've learned a lot from our own map. You know, we thought we really knew our community well, but there were super connectors within our community that we're not very connected to, and for us that was really interesting to see. And that really did generate a lot of excitement. It also generated a lot of pride. It was really lovely, you know, as we were looking at all of these different connectors, because there was so much in that map that I didn't show you because I just didn't have time. So I really would encourage you to go and have an explore of it. So one of the things it also does is that there's an iterative approach to mapping. So you do most of the mapping in that session, but then all of the people who've been mentioned in the mapping process but weren't there at the mapping are then invited to take part in the mapping asynchronously, so that you kind of create the natural edge of your community, and that's really interesting as well. And so communities kind of really understanding who, you know, because you might have we had one super connector in our community who doesn't actually live in our community, he lives just, you know, 2 villages away, but he is part of our community. And so that kind of thing was really interesting in kind of understanding and exploring. And yeah, there were people who, you know, we had quite fragile people who were recognised as super connectors, who just suddenly really understood their value and worth in the community in a really visual way, and it was really very beautiful actually. So yeah, just from within the community there was a lot of interest, and also what it does is it shows the different sectors and how they interplay. So it was also really interesting for like some of the private sector companies to see how that, you know, to see how they were kind of interplaying with the community, and then that encouraged you know, that kind of relationship to grow, those relationships to grow. So yeah, I guess there was interest everywhere, but yeah, from within the community, it was really super interesting.
It's a great question, Esme. So we're out of time. So I knew that hour and a half was going to run pretty quickly. So I know if there's any more questions, please either tweet them through to Practical Governance, come through to me. I'm happy to send them on, but I'm sure that we'd like to get them answered for you. But I'd like to make a bit of a just to appeal to you to come back in an hour's time. Go and get a nice bit of lunch. Come back, hour's time. We've got an hour session looking at no code. So just as a heads up, so no code is basically allows non-developers to quickly and easily create applications by using drag and drop, and it's been quite revolutionary in some of these examples. So please come along, have a look. Otherwise, thank you for joining us today. It's been great. Thank you for everyone who spoke. I think I've just been looking at all the chats and everyone's really enjoyed it and feeling inspired. So that's a great thing to do on a Tuesday morning, so in January. So thanks all, and keep in touch with Practical Governance and the Patchwork Network, and I'll see you in an hour. Thank you. Okay, so this is the second session of our Community Tech digital focused event around community business. So this afternoon's session is we're wanting to talk a bit more about a specific approach to development, and that's using the tools which are under this heading of sort of no code, low code. And the whole idea about this is that rather than having to go out there and learn code and develop things yourselves, there's actual platforms which quite often speak to each other, where you can basically don't have to be a developer, and you can start creating the systems and the processes which you need behind your organization. So this is a matter of like dragging and dropping. Now we've seen as part of the change, we've had our fingers, we've been dabbling in ourselves in some of our recent programs as a great way of bringing basically innovation and making changes quickly without having to go through huge long process of getting systems set up in some of these more static programs. So we've been using a mixture of program called Airtable and Zapier and other bits to help us to do that. So with that knowledge and knowing about some of the things that are happening within the no code area, we thought it'd be great to bring together this workshop just to really bring some of the practitioners who are in and around no code together to sort of just share what some of the things they're working on, some of the examples, and then at the end of that, just answer any questions. So please come into this, I think, with a sort of an open mind about no code at the beginning, but then just also keep on asking, like, what processes do you have in your organization which you think that actually no code could actually be a potential solution, and how no code can help you. So what I'll do first is I'll hand over to Tom. So Tom is he's got a consultancy called The Good Ship, and Tom, can you just check to see if you can screen share? Okay, is that what you were going to do?
Yep. Yeah, I'm all good. All good for screen sharing.
Brilliant. So I'll hand you in the capable hand of Tom, and around yeah, we'll come back in around 15 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Fergus. Thank you, everyone. I've got around 15 minutes, so this will be a rapid run through lots of interesting things. I'm just going to pull up some slides. I do have the slides, but there's only a few of them. I've kept it very light touch on the slides. So just quickly, no code, this is what we're talking about today. Occasionally you might see some things around low code, and I'm sure we'll get into that discussion a little bit later on around what the difference between no code and low code is. A bit about myself, there's me on the left and on the right. So there's work me on the left, which is very, nice professional picture. And on the right is me doing what I like to do most of the time when I'm not working, which is running up some stupid hill. Basically, I support most organizations with digital data and development. And if you want to check me out on Twitter, which is where I share most of the things around no code, feel free to do so there. I'll share those links a little bit later on. Okay, Fergus mentioned what is no code, and this is a quote taken from Wikipedia, which is about no-code development programs, and it allows programmers and non-programmers to create application software through graphical user interfaces and configuration instead of traditional computing programming. What does that mean? In many ways, I think it's point and click. Can you point and click and do something to basically build something? So in no code, you shouldn't really need to use any programming language. It is pointing and clicking. What you see is what you get, is what they used to kind of call it. And this is very much in that field. What can it be used for? Well, the world is kind of your oyster with this. What I've got here on a screen is a database built-in Airtable, which has a whole range of different, I've segmented all these different types of no-code tools into different uses. And there's things in there, you know, you can build a website, you can do databases, you can do landing pages, you can do email, you can do a whole list of things. Now, I have around about 700 no-code tools in this Airtable, and you could probably lose yourself in there for several days, weeks, months, years around figuring out which ones to use. But there's probably a tool out there for you for pretty much anything, is what I would say. And as Fergus mentioned earlier on, the beauty of kind of no-code tools is that there's probably a few of them. So if one doesn't particularly meet your needs, that's fine. You can find a different one. But the beauty for me is that generally they're built to be part of an ecosystem in that you can link them to other tools. And that is probably the beauty for me from this. So how can no code help? I work with lots of different organizations, community businesses, and also charities as well, and social enterprises. And generally, the way most people come to me is around, can we do something quick and can we test an idea? Can we create and test an idea quickly and probably cheaply is what I would say. There's lots of things around saving time on manual tasks. I think the beauty of no code is very much about learning by doing. I'm a big proponent of this because actually it lifts the veil, the box, opens up the black box to see what is behind it. And so by learning through this process, trying things out, you can figure out what exactly works for you. You're not reliant on what the platform does, you can figure it out yourself. And as a business, you can build in stages. You can develop something, test it, try it, and then build upon that with different tools. Some examples that I kind of work with people on, some things around building a marketplace, and that's one that I'm going to very quickly demo in a minute, how quickly you can get something from having a few products into an actual marketplace. Things around internal documentation and your website. You can spin up a website really quickly. And automation. I mentioned about being able to take over manual tasks pretty quickly. And that's one that I think is quite common, a common use that people come to me with. So for example, that might be, we have a community hub, and what we want to do is book out rooms. We spend a huge amount of time basically having phone calls in or people sending emails in, and then we go to try and book these rooms, and there's a lot of back and forth. Or we're forever building email lists in various different places, and they're held in various different ways. And what we can do is try to bring those together, or it might be around billing as well. So those manual tasks that you quite often find within an organization, no code is a good way to kind of get around some of that. So I'm going to stop sharing these slides now. And I'm going to talk through kind of a couple of different tools that I use quite often and give kind of rough examples of some of these things. And then I'm going to do a really quick live, I've never done it before, we'll see if it works, marketplace. So bringing some products into a marketplace in, I think, under 4 minutes, but we'll see. Let's hold me to that. So some of the types of things that I use quite commonly, I mentioned there's over 700 tools. The big ones for me are something around Airtable. Fergus mentioned that previously, and Airtable is a big one, and this is Airtable. I use Airtable a lot as the database behind lots of the work I do. When I mentioned that people come to me for automation, a lot of that is about moving information from one place to another, okay? And there's some automation tools, which I'll talk to you in a moment, but I often use something like Airtable to hold a lot of that information in a database. It looks quite like a spreadsheet in many ways. And the beauty behind it is that it is relational, so you can link things together. I'm not going to go into too much details about Airtable. I'll give you a little bit at the end, which talks about how you can learn more about that. This one here is a demo I built for somebody around billing and invoicing. And what it allows people to do is set their clients, set the people, set the projects, and then set some activity. So basically we can set up a series of different projects or clients or people we need to build. We can link activity to that. And then within that, I can then assign that to a specific project and work out how much to build them. Okay, that's nothing that complicated. You can do that with an Excel spreadsheet. The extra bit that I built into this is that over here at the right-hand side, if we can zoom in, it does some calculation, and it also builds in some things where you'll see here it says zero invoice. Now, Xero is a online finance tool. It's a bit like QuickBooks. And what this allows me to do is click that button. It automatically produces an invoice directed to a specific person who I've listed in this Airtable. So that means I can, for the people I built this for, they can quickly, saves them about an hour to an hour and a half every month on invoicing. They click a button, the invoicing is done, it's all detailed to the right people, all done, okay? And the way I do that, the way I link Airtable to something like Xero is via something called Zapier. Zapier is one of the automation tools you will hear or might hear a little bit more about. I don't know if Charlotte or Simon are going to talk a little bit about these, but Zapier is a tool to move information from one tool to another tool. There's a few other ones out there. I personally like the IFFFT one as a name because it basically describes what it does. If this, then this, basically. So if something happened here, it does this. And that's what basically any automation tool does. You get it to look for something called a trigger, something happens, and you get it to do something. And in this case, I built, it looks for me pressing that button or whoever pressing that button, takes that information and sends it to Xero and creates an invoice. And that moving of information is one of the most powerful things. If you look here on my screen, you can see that in here, there's a whole list of different tools that you can start with. So I can say Google Calendar. If something happens in my Google Calendar, like a new event, I can then take that information and move it to somewhere else. There's a whole list of these, and that's when I said there's a whole ecosystem of no-code tools to be able to move from one thing to another. And that's one example of moving information around. Another example that I use no-code tools for is something like this. This is a tool called Notion. It's a tool that this is a template that I put together for somebody because what they wanted to do was hold information about their organization in one place. So this was a kind of bit of an onboarding tool for them as an organization. And what this allowed me to do was create for them a handbook. And in here, it's got a whole list of things like policies, projects, the people. They have the meeting notes, where their impact is. It's got all the tools that they use, the images and assets. And all this is a really quickly spun together organizational handbook. So if you go in here, you'll get a whole list of other pages that you can use. So for instance, this one is all about their purpose, vision, value, etc. And no, I think Notion is a really good tool to get to grips with, because it's kind of a bit like a Google Doc, but you can do a few more things with it. What can you do with it? Well, I actually use it for my website. And so I've built my website based upon Notion page. It's a Notion page. It's exactly the same. I've spun it into a proper website using a tool called Super, which allows you to take from Notion into a website. And because I work in Notion quite a lot, it enables me to just not think about having to create a website and do all of that management. I'm already in Notion. I do the work in there. Okay, I've got 4 minutes left. Can I create a marketplace in 4 minutes? This is going to test me. Okay, so 2 tools I'm going to use. I'm going to use Airtable. I'm going to use Softer to try and create a marketplace very quickly. I need some information. I'm not going to create a whole database of things, but what I'm going to do is try to pull some information from a website called Sports Shoes, because as I said, I love running, and this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take some information from this website, okay? And I'm going to use a tool, a no-code tool called a web scraper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few bits of information from this website. So I'm going to say, I want to know the brand of everything. I'm going to set brand. I want an image. Who thought this was a good idea at this stage? Do this in 4 minutes. I'm going to take the name of something. I'm going to say that. And I'm also going to say the price. And the price is there. What I'm doing here is something called a web scraper. And basically what that allowed me to do is pull from that website all of this information that was publicly displayed really quickly. I'm going to download that into a CSV. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to create a new Airtable. I'm going to import from a CSV. I'm going to upload that, and there's the information that I've pulled through from that web scraper. I'm then going to go into something called Softer, which links Airtable to a kind of a web application. I'm going to use a blank template. I've got 2 minutes left. I'm really testing myself here. I'm going to very quickly throw in a header. I'm going to throw in a hero feature just to make it look a little bit pretty. I'm going to change different picture. There we go. Different picture of, could be something to do with running. What am I going to do now? I'm going to add another block, and this is where the interesting bit comes. Is I'm going to bring in a list of information. Like, let's go with that one. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to link that to Airtable. Now what I need to do is just go and get an Airtable API code from my thing. 1 minute. Come on, Tom, you can do this. Okay, I've connected that to my Airtable. Trail shoes. And now what I'm going to do is, in these categories, I'm going to link the image to an image. Oh, there's some shoes. I'm going to get the text from the name. I'm going to get the heading from the brand, and I'm going to get this one. I'm going to call this one from the price. Okay, and then basically within hopefully 4 minutes, I've got a semi, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. I've got a semi attempt at a website, which is a marketplace. So basically using this, I was able to bring in information from a database onto what looks like, roughly, very rough, basically a marketplace. Okay, so I can list that. So if you are a community business and you're thinking, we want to see if we can sell something, we want to create a sales, we want to sell some products, you don't have to go all out and invest in a huge, massive new build website to create a marketplace. What you can do is quickly spin this up, see if we can actually basically sell that. And there we go. There's a, very rough and ready, but within 4 minutes created something that you can test. Okay. I've got 1 minute over. I'm very sorry for going 1 minute over, but there we go. Rapid fire all the way through.
Tom,
now.
That was really impressive. And yeah, you lived up to it. I mean, 4 minutes, 4 minutes 30. I mean, it's all the same. It's under the. I mean, when you're running, when you're running, I mean, if you were losing 30 seconds, you would be pretty upset, wouldn't you? But anyway.
Well, to be fair, Fergus, the distances I run, it doesn't really matter as long as I get to eat.
Yeah, 100 miles. Yeah, I know. I've seen your Twitter feed. But anyway, impressive. Both impressive. Thanks for that. And hopefully that's shown you, that's that live experiment just shows how quickly it is and how simple it is to sort of use these drag and drop applications and how you can test things up, have a go, see if it works. But in that, you also saw Tom use, basically, I think you use 4 different softwares, 4 different products there. So it isn't like where you're just going to use one. There is lots of different functionality of different ones. It's about a lot of plugging and playing around to see which ones fit best for your solution. So Tom, we're going to come back to Tom with questions. We've got a great one already from Sarah. So we'll come back to that in the Q&A. So let's just slip in now and have a chat with Simon. So Simon, how are you?
Good. I feel under a lot of pressure now to do something impressive in 4 minutes.
3 minutes. It's got we've got to up the ante. But no. Simon's joining us to talk a bit about community shares and a opportunity there around how he's used no code to come up with a solution which has been for a problem that's been bugging a lot of community benefit societies for many years. So Simon, hand over to you.
Thanks, Fergus. Yeah, so I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. So yeah, I just want to talk to you about Air Register. So as Fergus said, Air Register is basically a tool that we've been developing to help organisations, societies manage their community shares register. And so just to provide a bit of background on community. So a lot of you may be familiar with community shares, but essentially it's a form of social finance that organisations from community pubs, shops, energy, farms have used to raise finance to start and grow community businesses. So about 500 organisations have raised about 150 million from over 100,000 people. So it's quite a substantial kind of sector. And basically, with community shares, what happens is that those organizations, which are often, relatively small scale, volunteer run, they've suddenly got to, manage those investments, often from hundreds of members. And, there's actually a kind of a legal requirement to sort of have a kind of fit for purpose register and manage that on an ongoing basis in terms of meeting the kinds of commitments and terms and conditions around those investments. So in some cases, that's paying interest on those investments or allowing people to withdraw their investments in the future. But what we found is there's been a kind of lack of sort of dedicated online tools to help societies manage this. So a lot of societies have sort of used Excel and as we'll talk about with no code there's like a big jump in functionality and power that goes from that kind of spreadsheet where things get messy and complicated and have issues around version control to then, what we've had previously which is, oh, you've then got to, there's a big jump from having like an Excel spreadsheet to having a kind of fit for purpose database, which you might spend months and lots of having to invest a lot of money and time and energy in building something, and then all the problems that may result from having to work with a third party. And so we thought that actually there must be a sweet spot somewhere where we can allow society to kind of build something themselves, or we can help, but using this idea of no code, which Tom has said, that actually that drag and drop, allowing organizations to have a bit of control over their share register, because actually every organization will want to will have their own kind of requirements and their own aspects. So we kind of flagged this as an opportunity that we thought we could develop something, so I'll explain on my next slide. But essentially we got some support from Cooperatives UK, which is the sort of trade body for co-ops and community benefit societies, to sort of develop a tool that would help in that regard. So so basically, just to give you a little bit more context about who we are. So myself, I worked at Cooperatives UK for 8 years and sort of was really involved in community shares and helped establish something called the Community Shares Unit. I'm also a board member of a organisation called Friends of Stretford Public Hall, and we actually did a share offer back in 2017 to raise money to restore our ballroom. And I was experiencing firsthand like the problem, like managing, having all this data and different members and investments. So I came together with 2 other kind of practitioners, Dave Boyle and Patrick Morello, and we kind of sort of started to identify what tools might be used. And obviously, as we heard from Tom, one of the like leading tools in this space is Airtable. And I'll explain a little bit that we also, so we probably have mainly gone for a no code solution, but with a little bit of low code. So we did bring in a kind of developer just to help us with a bit of scripting. But again, we just had to get a little bit of technical time, like a day or two. But if we'd gone through like a full kind of, if we hadn't gone down the no code route, it could have been much more complicated and time consuming and expensive. But in terms of the like the features, what are we actually trying to do with Air Register? So basically we just want to as a basic like offer is just to allow organizations to capture and maintain key information about their members and investors, and member details, terms and conditions of the offer, and investment data. We then basically want to help societies implement the kind of financial processes that come with their share register. So interest payments, withdrawals, and basically help them do that accurately and with as little administration as possible. We want to allow societies to create reports so they can analyze their share register or provide that information for their annual returns. And also recognize that actually when you've got lots and lots of members, it's really time consuming to have to send out bespoke emails, forms, statements. So we've, again, as Tom mentioned, we've built in some automation to speed that up and make it more just lower the operational and administrative burden of having lots and lots of investors and members, because actually it's really valuable for a society to have that aligned membership, but obviously the cost is, it can be quite time consuming. So so we essentially chose no code, and Airtable I suppose is like the main tool within the no code environment for a number of reasons. Some of these actually Tom has like already picked up, so it's quite nice to sort of like reinforce some of the things, some of those hopefully those benefits. But yeah, this idea of it being relational, which Tom mentioned, is just so important for a register where you've got different discrete bits of data that you want to link together and manage, which actually you just get into, also tie yourself into knots when you're trying to do that in Excel or in a spreadsheet, which isn't actually a relational piece of software. But as Tom demonstrated, it's so flexible and so customizable. So we felt that actually for societies that might not have particularly technical people, it should be relatively intuitive for them to kind of customize it and kind of build it for their own purposes. Again, as Tom's shown, it is very powerful, the ability to link things to it, do automations, integrate, and that we found was really helpful for sort of designing the share register. It is quite affordable. So we've designed something that works on the free plan, but actually there is a 50% non-profit discount in the case of Airtable, and actually a number of these no-code tools do have discounts for sort of non-profit uses. So it's useful for to explore that. And then something that was quite bespoke to us is we've actually developed a template, essentially, share register, that we can then share to society, other organisations. So the ability to create something and then get it out in the world quite quickly has been really helpful. So I am not going to commit to doing anything as on the scale that Tom did in 4 minutes, but I thought I would just quickly show you what it actually looks like, just to give people a flavour of it. I don't know how I'm doing for time, Fergus.
A couple of minutes, please, Simon.
Sorry?
A couple of minutes, yeah. 3 minutes.
A couple of minutes, yeah, no problem. So basically, this has got some dummy data in, so don't worry, I'm not, hopefully, there's not responsible for some massive GDPR breach here. So this is just like a pretend sort of share register, but basically, as sort of Tom showed, we've got this ability to kind of hold data and track data and manage the different aspects of a society share offer. So we've got like different areas. This is where you'd put your share offer data, so the name of the share offer, any of the terms and conditions associated with it, all your members' information would be here, and you can keep it nicely kind of formatted and structured. And then this is where the sort of relational aspect. So we can then start to link people's investments and transactions to sort of basically manage that kind of register where essentially people are investing, then they've got interest payments, and they've got withdrawals, and you need to kind of manage all those different kind of financial processes. So so this is where we've got investment data, and again, it's all linked back to the member, back to the offer. And then what we've used is this kind of transactions table where we can kind of collate all that information. And a good example is, I'm just going to focus in on, so we've got this member who's invested in this fictional pub society. So they've made an initial investment and we've tracked that. And then they've had an interest payment, and that's been credited as new shares. And we've got this nice kind of structured data, and we can see how much that they have it within the society. But we can basically run interest payments as batches. So if we just do a new batch, say we're going to run a new interest payment, so we're going to do a 3% interest payment, and we're going to just calculate, so this is the little bit of low code that we've put into the system, where we're going to, sorry, it's a bit slow when I'm trying to do it on Zoom. So we've now calculated an interest payment. So when I go into the transactions table, we've now got this new transaction it's created, and it's calculated, and it's actually batched that for all our all our investors. And we've kept most things within the Airtable system, but we could push this data out and send it as emails. But just as an example of what we've done, we can kind of send out statements. So then you can, if people can see that. You've got this nice little statement that you can send out and shows people's shareholding. So so that's probably, that's just a very kind of quick overview of the tool. But as I mentioned, and I'll just go back to my last slide. Basically, the way we've designed it is it's a template on that you can basically go on. We just created a little website called airregister.co.uk, and we are just basically issuing. This is like a very early stage product, but we are working with societies to help them, hopefully. And we've got a few societies starting to use it. Stretford Public Hall, the society I'm involved in, we're using it. And it's basically a question of just signing up, and then you can get access to the template and start using it. And it basically, we've, by using no code, we've been able to develop something relatively quickly with kind of minimal technical input that then can be used by societies. They can customize it themselves, and kind of take it where they want it to go. So rather than sort of this top-down kind of controlled process, so it seems like there's some interest, and I think what we're now what we're seeing now is almost, how do we provide the ongoing support? And so that's like, so then the next chapter is getting people onboarding and using these kinds of tools. But it's definitely been, we've definitely found using no code a really powerful way to kind of build something quite quickly that's hopefully going to help societies going forward.
Thanks, Simon. I mean, I can just see how much I can save, like a volunteer, like a whole volunteer board, like how much, that one interaction. So thank you for actually taking the time to go out and develop that, because I think it will really save lots of organizations, lots of trouble. So thanks. Now, again, any questions, please put them in the chat or save them up for the last 10 minutes. But otherwise, I will now hand over to Charlotte. So Charlotte, I won't take it away from Charlotte, what you're presenting about Carefree. Very impressive. I used to work in and around the world of unpaid carers, and this is sounds like a godsend now. I wish we was around when I was in that world 5 years ago. Charlotte, please tell us more about it.
Thanks so much, Fergus. And it wouldn't have been possible 5 years ago, actually, because the tech that enables, we basically mobilize the unsold hotel rooms across the hotel industry. There's 1 million unsold hotel rooms in the UK every week. And so we've created a mechanism for those hotels to be able to distribute that excess capacity to us, that we then distribute out to unpaid carers who are referred by community partners, care support organisations, local authorities, NHS trusts. And actually, it's only through the evolution of, I guess, these companies that can be connector points, so we work with a company called Impala that enables that global distribution API, that these things are now possible. So we also had the idea 5 years ago, but it's only today that you can really bring it into fruition and to action. But just for today's talk, I am going to show you what we've done with Carefree's architecture and building up through no code, and what drove those decisions, and some of the parallels between the philosophy behind community tech and what's happening in the no code space. But just so that we've got a little bit of a feed for the discussion later on, I thought we could do a quick waterfall exercise of, from what you guys have all seen today, if you could name a couple of business processes that you'd like to see automated within your organizations. Is it payments? Is it reporting? Is it a quick web app build? Is it volunteer management? Just pop into the chat, something that you see within your own organizations that you think would really be beneficial to be automated. And then we can, when we circle up to the finish of this talk, we can actually track through what people most want to see in terms of those community solutions. So yeah, just chuck in team management. Awesome. Thanks, Fergus. Yeah, any business process that you can think of, we'll do our best to try and find you on the top of the spot a quick solution for you. Brilliant. Yeah, impact reporting, got loads of that going on. Wonderful. All right, I'm going to share my screen, talk you through a few slides, and Fergus, could you give me a nod in 10 minutes time?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. So hopefully everyone can all see this. Quick nutshell piece about Carefree is that the way in which we do all of this kind of transfer of community assets from the hotel industry through to social sector organisations and carers directly is by leveraging kind of easy to use technology and really flexible pathways. So just as a quick example, we've got kind of a Webflow plugin within our website, our public facing website. You can just click login, and for any community partner, they'll have their own kind of individual Carefree space. And this is just a quick combination of Webflow, NAC, which is kind of a database I think a lot of people use. Again, this is dummy data. So any community partner can see the list of carers that they've referred, whether they've been able to take a break, can very quickly export that data for impact management. We'll be building up more and more beautiful dashboards as we go with this tool. But what it also means, we've got another little plug in here. What's new? That's kind of a tool called Beamer. So we can just kind of share news with any of our community partners. They can give us kind of lots of mechanisms for quick feedback. We've also got kind of intercom chat support on any element, little product tours built in here. And then with the refer a carer bit, it's literally a 15-second form for any kind of care support worker to just kind of start a referral, and it immediately just takes you through into something called Typeform, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with from a surveys perspective, but actually being able to embed it into your website so that it comes up with some questions for you, and then all that data kind of tracks through into your back-end databases that you can process in different ways. But just very, very quick and easy ways in which we can identify carers, get them quickly connected to support, none of which requires a heavy technical build, and all of which is a very low cost solution for organizations when you just need to be able to have things that are universal, like registration forms and things like that. As a organizations without unlimited resources, you don't want to be building stuff yourself that can be easily kind of produced in other areas. So I just wanted to show you a little bit of the platform, but I'm actually going to focus in on these slides really for most of it. So when I was listening to Rachel's talk earlier, and she was talking about the definition of community tech as being owned, made, or adapted by a community, adapted is really the key word here for when we think about no code. And some of these companies that are most well known in the space, so I'll just move this over a little bit so you can see it a bit more. Does that work? Hopefully everybody's view is okay. Things like Airtable, the Airtable universe that Simon was sharing, that you can create these templates, get them shared to other people so they can easily be replicated. But essentially all of the products within the no code space will be designed so that any small business owner or independent can pick them up and apply them without having to take on the burden of high level engineering costs or technical debt. So it is like having lots and lots of teams of engineers for these specific features and functionalities that you might want for your business that are there to deliver products and features for you that you can plug and play within your organization. Typeform's a really good example of this because they have like a strong kind of Typeform community, all of which kind of provide feedback, community requests on different products, improvements that they want to see. And there's a very live conversation between the community of creators using Typeform within their businesses and their organizations, and what drives the roadmap of the product teams that will be kind of including those new features within Typeform and making everything kind of very open, very integrated. I mean, a lot of people use Airtable because it's so open with its integrations. If you want to integrate with a payments mechanism, if you want to integrate with an SMS tool, Airtable is going to allow you to do all of that. And I think across the no code community, it is about how many integrations you're able to create with lots of other companies. So for example, Intercom is something that we use for customer support, but they have an API integration with Databox, so we can easily feed instant data through to understand what our customer support picture looks like. And because you've got that kind of openness across companies, it builds this philosophy of communication and collaboration among this next generation of software companies, which you obviously didn't see in the kind of Microsoft versus Apple era. These are a really different generation of organizations that are coming through that are really trying to democratize software and make it accessible for everybody, so that technology isn't a barrier to the transition or the development of organizations and initiatives. Slack also have a public roadmap, lots of organizations do. Carefree's tech strategy. The driving factors behind our tech strategy was we basically only had 40 to 60K a year to spend on tech, and we're trying to service tens of thousands of users with that, and that's not even enough to support one engineer's salary. So we had to come up with another way. And as a charity, seeking to meet the needs of our beneficiaries, we really believe that our skills lie in great service design and not Jira tasks. There was a whole 18 months of the organization where we were trying to do custom build code, where I was in charge of, creating Jira tasks for engineers to do. And it was the most horrible few months of my life. But also the range of functionality that we needed to create goes way beyond what one community tech platform solution could deliver. Or if even if we had built out a fully customized booking hub for carers, kind of, I guess, the Airbnb, if you like. We would still need to plug in other bits and pieces of tools to be able to deliver that platform, whether that's Stripe for payments processing, MailChimp for newsletters. You know, you'll always find that you're going to need to use a cross sector of tools to be able to bring together what your full delivery looks like in terms of your business requirements being met at every stage of every user's journey. And when you get into that stage, you've really got hundreds and hundreds of user journeys happening. So we wanted to empower our like non-technical product team. So that's led by our CTO Joey, and we'll be hiring some new positions in the next couple of months on that for that team. So if anybody knows of any great people, please do point them in my direction. We needed to automate leads, marketing, customer support, because we're always going to be a team of 5 to 10 people within the range of budget we're going to have. So, but we're very ambitious in that we are trying to deliver thousands and thousands of breaks. We've got about 3,000 breaks available per month on the platform at the moment. So, you know, we can't deliver customer service without there being that automated element to it. A lot of people are speaking about that rapid testing, proof of concept, and that we also needed to select tools that could really easily integrate with other tools. Zapier is a great connector for all of that. And it also, you know, as you go through your development of kind of no code, you do find that, you know, if an organization doesn't have a Zapier integration, we can't use it basically, because it has to be able to kind of tie together easily with other things. So in the end result phase, we've converted about 90% of our we've gone from 90% custom to 10% code. So we do a bit of low code, and then we do fully owned, part of our platform is fully owned by us and delivered by engineers. We have partnerships with innovative companies when there needs to be something that is very innovatively delivered. So companies like Impala that provide that global distribution API for the hospitality industry, so that any hotel that has inventory listed on booking.com is able to live release inventory to Carefree with just a couple of clicks. And that's not something that any charity or community organization could pull off. I think Impala had about 33 million in seed funding from VC raise. You know, they've got 40 engineers on their team. It's amazing that their engineers spend so much time developing stuff for us. It's really brilliant to see that kind of startup charity sector partnership in action, and we're going to achieve really great things together. We have about 25 no-code tools that we use. I've listed some of them here. Can't list all of them, and my goodness, I've even forgotten to put Zapier on the list. So and Webflow. I mean, all these things that are just suddenly spring to mind as we're going through the previous presentations. We spent £36,000 on tech last year, which is very, very little in comparison to the 7 products or something that we actually deliver. We think we'll spend about 60,000 this year. We, you know, something's gone a user license. So things like Airtable, where it's about $12 a user license a month, that's really affordable for organizations. Other things like Front, which is our kind of another aspect of our customer service interface, that is more expensive per user license, and the more we build up the team, our costs rise, but still very, very much lower than if we were having to support an engineering team within our organization or service kind of large amounts of technical debt. Making life manageable for your team. I just love this. This was kind of one of the things passed around our Slack the other day. We were just looking through some of the customer support data, and we had, you know, we just opened up the platform on 10th of November. So we've had 2,288 people seeking some customer support. And we've developed things like really great help articles to kind of, you know, automatically direct users that need a bit of unblocking on issues. And like over 2,000 managed to resolve that themselves. So we only needed to intervene with about 147, 159 stopped in the user journey, but just absolutely phenomenal that, you know, from a digital inclusion perspective and a digital capability perspective with our carers, that over 2,000 were able to service themselves because we spent so much time on designing their journey and where they can reach help throughout that user journey. So just really, really proud of how we are making implementing these solutions so that life becomes manageable for our teams, and we're not kind of completely flooded with kind of customer service requests from very high needs users. The platform. So what does the platform do? Lots of things. The platform provides community partners with a referral pathway, individual member spaces to track their impact, carers can self-identify and get digitally verified. We partner with a company called SumSub to deliver that in collaboration with Typeform. We provide multi-channel customer support, chatbot, phone, email, WhatsApp, anything that carers need. We have kind of for every hotel partner, they do have very specific requirements around how their inventory is gifted to us in relation to what days, time of the week, that sort of thing, or what days of the week, how many rooms per night, lots and lots of complex things. So for every hotel partner, we need to do kind of specific filters and functionality, and that's all done through NAC and Impala, which is the Booking Hub API. The actual Booking Hub is our custom built Booking Hub for the front end of it and everything else sitting behind it. And I do think we're at about 30 plus software integrations. Joe was telling me 25 this morning, but I was like, I'm sure it's 30. So I tried to take a snapshot of our architecture. It's so big, it doesn't work to try and do this way. But you've basically got over here in this section, you have all the ways in which we are doing outward facing communications towards carers and any stakeholders, how those communications are processed. And then you get kind of further into how data is passed through within our CRM systems through to some of the other areas of functionality for the delivery of our self-referral tool for carers, member spaces for individual hotel partners, community partners, the booking platform itself. But everything green is no code. Everything blue is stuff that we have built and maintained ourselves, and everything yellow is stuff that we need a little bit of low code for, so not much on the low code. And these are just a sample of the companies that we are working with at the moment that provide kind of different elements of what we need, again, from the end-to-end user journeys of our business requirements. So I'm just going to wrap up with some tips and tricks. I really believe that the more hyper clear you can be on what your business requirements are, you can choose tools to fit the needs in the long term. You know, there's lots of different payment processing tools, for example, or data visualization tools, for example. Really understand how you need that information to be passed through within your internal architecture, and how you would like other people to receive that information as well, and just get a sense of kind of what do you need something to be able to perform for you. Mocking up quick MVPs, proof of concepts on how something will work before you make any investments. A lot of companies that, you know, of the NACA companies will spend time with you on and kind of giving you access to trials to be able to do that and help you figure out how something could work within your organization. They really are on hand to walk you through that journey. Being able to iterate very quickly on user feedback. I mean, this is our, you know, the big plus side of no code from our perspective. And we really make sure to keep our product backlog very, very organized so that we can continually make improvements and then share those back with our users. And in terms of if something isn't fit for purpose anymore, change it. I think that a lot of the philosophy behind community tech is about being able to have ownership over what you do and how you do it and how you deliver it. And for us, we feel that we have, because we've come from this tech architecture vision of, you know, everything that we need to be, that we need our platform to deliver, and then try to cascade down what tool can plug in to deliver that piece. We've always felt really in control of how we are driving the delivery of our tech platform. And additionally, if a tool isn't working for us anymore, we will move away from it and find something else. You know, we did a transition from Airtable to Notion plus Pipedrive. You know, there'll be transitions, and the companies that are making these tools and providing those tools absolutely understand that. And yeah, the life cycle of that user journey is, you know, is really up to you. Brilliant. Thank you.
Brilliant, Charlotte. Thank you. Really impressive. And I've seen that graphic before about like how big that tech stack is, but yeah, like, yeah, really impressive. Yeah. And again, like back to Simon, you know, what he's done for like cooperatives and what you're doing there for carers, it's like, it's really impressive. So thanks again. So we've got not much time, sorry, 6 minutes for questions. Now, again, I have a couple prepped, but I much prefer to open up to the group to see if there's any questions. So if you do, please raise your hand and we'll go from there. maybe I start with Sarah's first. So Sarah asked, how do you go about working out what all the business process steps are before jumping into the no-code tool? So who would like to go with that first? Shall I ask you, Tom, actually?
You can do, whether I'll be able to answer it properly. So yeah, I mean, I think Charlotte said there at the end, it's, and I always come back to this, it's not about the tool, it's about how you want to do things. So it's very much about understanding what are the needs of that particular organization, how do they currently work. So I think if you can understand how you currently work, it gives you an insight into what are the pain points within any of that. So it's thinking through, how do you do this now? Identifying what doesn't work, what do you like about how you do things, understanding the skills of the people involved in it. And then there's also, for me, that additional consideration of what is your team already comfortable with in terms of tools. So in that sense, you can get an idea of how they work, the functions, but also around what do they currently already use. So you've got an endpoint, so you can kind of allow people to think through an entry point in terms of what they're already comfortable with. And I think that's quite often important. And then you've probably got a list of from about 100 tools down to about 5 tools, and then you go from there.
Thanks, Tom. Charlotte?
Yeah, I'm going to quickly share. Mapping our product vision to technical systems, we essentially start with a high level vision. So what are the different stakeholder groups? What kind of features or functionality do we want to be able to provide them with? We then map the business processes, so identifying their journeys through the platform. So an example of a business process layer for hospitality partners would be, we identify a lead. So this hotel might want to gift to us. We make an approach. We then, if they're interested, we will then send them a proposal, then a contract signed, released, and then we'll need a way to kind of request inventory from them to approve inventory, and it goes kind of through. So when we talk about a user journey or business process layer, it is everything from lead initiation through to completion. And then if you try to map, this is not what we did. This is a very old slide, so it's not current today. But when you do the user story layers, you then see that you need administration kind of pipe drive style systems for this section, and then you need to get more into kind of actual tech for requests for this section of their user journey. And then you can track through the technical systems layer. So at the time we were looking at doing Freshworks for CRM, so like CRM being kind of the big part of the journey, and then through to some other applications for the second stage. Again, this was developed quite a long time ago, but hopefully that gives a better understanding of what we mean when we say the business process layer, the actual user stories layer, and then mapping the technical systems to what user stories you have.
Great, thanks. That's very, yeah. Sarah, does that answer the question?
Took myself off mute. Yeah, it's probably worth me just reflecting that these are things that I understand because I come from, the tech world and the startup world. But I'm finding explaining this creates a lot of intimidation and resistance with community businesses that I'm trying to help. And I'm just looking for a simpler way. So using language like steps and not using language like business process mapping, to make it just less intimidating, more welcoming, more enjoyable, if that were possible.
Okay. I mean, I'm not sure if I think it does seem we've gone from one level of Tom's looking quite high level right through to Charlotte's quite in detail, looking at one specific problem. There's a spectrum, yeah. And I don't think we've got a solution there, but I think it's really important. What we've got is it's really important to understand the process before you then jump at a tool. And Sarah, I mean, when you come up with that product, yeah, please make sure you tell us all. Michael had a question. All these slides will be shared on the on the Patchwork platform. So please join. We'll put Patchwork team will put a link in there, and then you can join that, and you will get access to all the slides, the recording, everything else. I know that, Charlotte, you sort of talked about your tech stack. When I say tech stack, about like how much all your products cost, and you sort of said it was, yeah, it seemed quite, you know, when you put the number, it seems quite a lot, but then when you say, yeah, how much an engineer would cost, you know, that it makes it a lot cheaper. But I'm just wondering, so Simon, Tom, you know, what's your sort of tech stack? Because you're a bit different in terms of like, you haven't got a whole organization to serve. Just wondering how much you sort of spend on your sort of no code solutions.
Well, I mean, I suppose the main premise with the Air Register was to try and do as much within Airtable. So one of the key things we thought that to sort of boost adoption, because I think there is this like wealth of opportunity by connecting tools and integrating, but we actually felt that actually this one-stop shop kind of, so that was one of our main, and I think that's what Airtable is, that is, I know, I mean, I think others might come in, but they are trying to bring more features into their own ecosystem, so you're not having to kind of branch out. So they've got their own automations now that's replicating some of the stuff that Zapier is doing. They've got some analytics, you know, so that was one of our kind of main goals, was to try and say, could we get basically an all-seeing, as much an all-seeing, all-dancing register within Airtable and use all the features. So in terms of user adoption, because we're obviously we're hoping that societies that maybe have limited experience or confidence around using digital, it wouldn't be such a massive jump, because they're just in one kind of look and feel of Airtable rather than jumping to different tools. Yeah, so that's keeping our cost down, I suppose.
Yeah, and just to add to Simon's point, because when we asked the question of what do people need help with, stock management, volunteer management, impact reporting, prospect management, scheduling, task management, Airtable can perform all of that, you know, just put a different face, a different base on each of those things within your organization. It's a phenomenal tool for organizations to kind of embed into their systems. Yeah, don't use it these days.
Very quickly, Fergus, I probably spend about £60 to £80 a month just on a few different tools. And then for most of the people that I work with, I'll try to do something that is on their free version. So it's on an Airtable, it's with linking with something that they already use, just so that they can test it. And if they then want to go a bit more, they can spend a little bit more. But it's, you're talking kind of 20, 30, 40 pounds a month side of things to do all that, all of those things that in that list. Again, I've built templates, and again, Simon mentioned templates again, templates in Airtable that do most of those things, time management and capacity things. I'll do that for an organization and share it, and they'll just run it on the free version. I've actually saved money just by, I used to track all my invoicing in Harvest, which cost me about £15 to £20 a month, and did all my time tracking. I just built that in Airtable and used Zapier and linked it to my calendar, because I was doing it for somebody else. So I did it for somebody else, then went, oh, why aren't I doing that? Save myself £20 a month just by building it myself. So, all of these things, I think there's a low entry fee to get into that. I've put just quickly, I've put a link in the chat just for a little kind of community that I run, which has monthly kind of show and tells on different no-code tools. So at the end of this month, I'll be running one on Airtable, one on Notion next month. I'm going to try and nab Charlotte at some point to come and do a guest talk on some of these things, and maybe Simon. But feel free to sign up. It's free. Just come along and learn a bit more.
Brilliant. We'll include that in resources. So if you can put that on, we'll get that on the website. Thank you very much, everyone. Sorry, time has got the better of us again. It's been a great conversation. Thank you very much to Simon, Charlotte, and Tom sharing us all your experience. And yeah, hopefully we'll keep this conversation going. So please, if you want to get the slides, anything, or any of the links to the tools, please join the Patchwork network. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye now.